want to welcome you all to our introductory episode of Achieving Amazing Sales Results through Partner Collaboration Within an Ecosystem. And this Roundtable webinar series will help you to understand why partner-to-partner relationships are important for the success of your business. P2P, which is partner-to-partner, is becoming more and more important because more companies are adopting the partner ecosystem model. So today we discuss how partners orchestrate, collaborate, innovate together for faster sales, bigger deals, and higher close rates. In our subsequent webinars on the fourth Tuesday of the next 5 months, so this webinar series goes through October, we will drill down on specific topics such as designing a needed solution and assembling the right partners. So look for the webinar invitations and info on LinkedIn like you did this time around for our first one. And also the webinars will be recorded, and we will be posting the recordings so that you can go back and take a look at them if you'd like. So Gary, go ahead. Yes, thank you. And click again. And what I'm just going to briefly go through are the partner-to-partner roundtable rules of engagement for today's roundtable. So you all are encouraged to join the discussion. So this is not going to be us just speaking at you. We want you to get involved and join the discussion. If you want to say something, please use the reactions feature that has the raised hand to indicate you'd like to speak. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. And the chat and the Q&A, it looks like it's just the chat. So the chat feature, please use chat to enter any information or questions that you might have. Gary's going to be monitoring the chat so that if you put something in there, we will, he'll find it. Let us know that you've done that. So Gary, next slide. So I am Dee Dee Haas. I am a channel strategist, practitioner, and coach with DLH Services. And what I do is I help ISVs to decide if they should go into the channel. And if they do, to help them stand up the channel and also help them develop relationships with partners. And I'm going to hand this over to Gary to give us a brief description about what he does.
I'm Gary Lamb. Norma calls me the Salesforce Partner Whisperer. I specialize in working with Salesforce SI and ISV partners to brand themselves and engage better with Salesforce while co-selling with Salesforce and customers. And off to you, Norma.
Thank you. I'm Norma Wattenpaugh, and my company is Phoenix Consulting Group. And we work with companies in designing and optimizing their ecosystem business models so they can gain more value and profitability through their partners and their strategic partnerships. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Greg Fox, who's been a colleague for many years. We first met at Cisco all those years ago, and Cisco had undoubtedly one of the premier strategic alliance organizations in the industry. Greg has got a wealth of experience in working with partnerships of all types and all business models, from GSIs to ISVs to channel and MSPs. So he brings a breadth and wealth of information about, how partners work together to collaborate better. He's worked at companies such as, I mentioned, Cisco, Citrix, Huawei, Novell, and recently at WorkSpan, which has a platform for partner-to-partner collaboration. So he brings a really rich expertise and perspective on this topic, and we're delighted to have him with us today. Greg, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Norma. It's great to be connected with you and amazing colleagues. And I see a lot of people joining on the webinar today from, trusted friends from, lots of different touch points across our, partnership and strategic alliances journey. So it's good to be with you.
Great. So Greg, I'm going to ask you to kind of kick this off and set the context for us of today's conversation, which is, what is P2P, partner-to-partner collaboration in the context of ecosystems? And why should we care? Why is
I know P2P is kind of a real kind of, top of mind, issue in terms of how partners are collaborating today. Really, if you look at partner to partner, it's around, where an agreement between two or more partners, right? They've got where they have defined mutually beneficial business outcomes, right? It's really business outcome oriented. And so I think the components of P2P are really around you have a qualified community of partners working together. You've got, targeted connections, and you've got a collaborative platform in which those partners can, hundreds of partners can be involved across all partner types, which, and you can have, faster time to market. Partners can, discover one another, and they can, matchmaking can occur between those partners real time, where they can combine, complementary capabilities centered on real business outcomes, as I said. So this really helps. This is an environment where new channels can be created, new joint pipelines can be developed, and new solutions and joint offerings can be designed. And they can decide who do they want to partner with, and they can build with one another, market with one another, sell with each other around nominated, customer opportunities. I would say that's just kind of, I think, P2P in a nutshell, I would say.
What I think is kind of interesting in how you framed it is that it's not this highly structured, vendor reseller or alliance partner. It sounds a lot more fluid and dynamic and opportunistic, actually, around specific customer needs. Absolutely.
I know Cisco has a partner to partner, platform that they call partner to platform exchange. And they facilitated that, build with, market with, sell with, motion, with their partners. So really end-way partnerships can be supported in the Cisco environment. And also they can even look at an assessment on a potential customer opportunity, right? They can do an assessment inside of the tool or the collaboration platform that says, what is, our value prop as a partner combined with other partner value props. Is there an executive sponsorship for this sales play? Is the customer open to a partner solution, et cetera? So they can really even collaborate around and define and see if there's a good fit around a customer deal or opportunity. So ultimately it's about, they can find solutions, create them, find sales plans, and then create, opportunities together, in that collaborative platform environment. I know that, Cisco, they have many, for example, partner to partner connections, things like their strategic partners working together where they can manage and accelerate joint architecture solutions, like, with Cisco coming together with NetApp around, and Presidio, like a VAR around their, this reference architecture that they've created for server storage and networking that are, pre-tested and validated to work together as an integrated infrastructure stack. They're doing things around IoT, around industry multi-partner solutions, DevNet solutions that are connecting resellers with ISVs to build, solutions around like retail locations, services, kinds of things. And then even things around, connecting solution integrators with resellers to build business outcomes around like cloud migrations, et cetera. So there's so many possibilities of how partners can discover one another, matchmake, co-create and design, offerings and joint sales capabilities and joint solutions around, customer needs. Mm-hmm. That's what a partner to partner collaborative environment facilitates.
Does anyone else have a question for Greg as we kick this off?
Hey, Norma, can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was doing a little bit of research. Microsoft does this really well as well, right? Their partner to partner network is pretty amazing. And if you look at some of the stats that Microsoft has around, bigger deal sizes, things like higher closure rates, or, these are, traceable real metrics that they
They're
can.
real. Yeah, I work with one company that tracked it pretty rigorously, and they could report quite, quantitatively that the deal sizes were twice as big.
Yes.
They were closing deals 50% more with partners, and they had like a 40% higher probability of close.
Yes.
And when you apply those kind of numbers to your pipeline, it's just mind-blowing the amount of productivity you can drive through your sales process just by partnering up.
Yeah, the sales velocity is pretty amazing. I know the initial Microsoft P2P network was focused on Azure. When they brought in ISVs, and there's always a VAR or reseller involved, in those transactions. And they saw, 40 to 50% of their Azure revenue is driven by ISV solutions, facilitated through their P2P network, which is pretty amazing. So they're seeing a lot of business outcomes and great results.
We have a question for Anoop. You want to go ahead, Anoop?
Absolutely. So I've just unmuted. Hi, everyone, and Greg.
Hey, Anoop.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
Great to see you. And from the UK, I miss talking to you.
Likewise, and we'll do that. We'll do that. So I have a quick question. I think the partner to partner piece is important, and I think, Greg, I've also seen what the likes of Microsoft have actually done within that space, and it's fantastic to see. I guess the question I have is you mentioned having the platform. So it's a platform around being able to look at leads, around metrics, around what's going on, etc. The thing that's important for me in this whole P2P space is, I think, in order for real success, and I mean the successes at the moment are really good. How do you accelerate those successes? How do you actually put those successes on steroids? Yeah. And one of the things I think that we need to take a look at are the collaborative juices, the collaborative behaviors of those partners that are involved in the whole P2P process. Are they doing the right thing, right? Because the challenge is, if what's happening within the P2P space is there's some opportunistic deals, and you're chasing after sales opportunities, etc. Quite often you're missing a lot of stuff, because the actual collaborative piece around, are we really doing the right thing, etc. Are our behaviors right? Is the trust level right between us, etc. If those isn't quite right, you're not actually achieving the full outcome that you could actually achieve, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
absolutely. I think those are kind of must-have capabilities that need to be in place around any collaborative relationships. I think there's a lot of reasons that there is failure to collaborate. Anoop, right? Things like differences in culture, or like you say, that lack of trust between parties. There's maybe not a shared vision, right?
Correct.
Or like a unique differentiated value proposition. And then, is there ineffective governance structures, or lack of executive commitment, or incompatible objectives? So I think all those core fundamentals around partner success have to be in place for you have the platform, you have the environment where partners can collaborate, build, co-sell, co-market, but those collaborative components have to be in place as a foundation, to your point.
So I guess, Greg, the difficulty, I guess, is how do you make sure those collaborative principles are in place? Because if you have multiple partners who are coming together to do things, you need certain people or one of the organizations to actually say, right, before we actually do anything, let's make sure that our whole attitudes, behaviors, and the kind of cultural fit, because it's never going to be ideal, but all of that sort of stuff is in place before you actually go and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of focusing on understanding who our customer is. Will they buy from us? What's our expected ROI? And then creating, I think, a business plan that has shared goals. Metrics for success are clearly understood. The routes to market are defined. There's a strategy for marketing and sales. And I think those kind of having a kind of a level set. One example I'll tell you is when I was at Cisco, we had a pretty combative relationship with a partner, a global services company, an outsourcer. I'll even name it, right? We had trouble with EDS at the time, right? And we had a sell to relationship, and they kind of measured success by how much we purchased from them, and then we finally got into a room together and said, okay, what are the core ingredients of a collaborative partnership? So we can do a lot more than just be mutual customers of one another if we really sit down and drive the fundamentals of the relationship and the alliance. So we put together just a set of best practices. We got executive commitment, executive peering. We set common goals together and said, we can really make a difference in the market and be real innovative and drive mutual business if we have these behaviors and tools and practices and behaviors. And it really led to some real kind of breakthrough results. And so I completely agree with those fundamentals are required in order to be successful.
Greg, I remember that because I had done a partner check just prior. And while what we heard is that, price, SLAs, operations, when we asked what their priorities were, both companies said, we want to grow new markets. We want to create competitive advantage. And then the discussion was, well, if that's what you want, why aren't you doing it?
Yes. Yeah. And I think Norma, to your point, I think the other thing to your point, Norma, and to Greg's point, I think one of the key things that I really home in on is I say to people, when you're looking to come together and look at joint business outcomes and all that kind of stuff, I said the first thing you really need to do is sit down and actually look at what are the relationship principles going to be like? How are you going to behave with each other? Yeah. What's trust going to look like? What are you going to do to mitigate distrust and all that kind of stuff? Because if those relationship pieces come together, first of all, then you're starting to work together as a collective we, as opposed to I'm trying to do something, you're trying to do something. And that's really got to be done very, very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and Peter, you guys do a great job with your kind of practice around helping companies discover that and laying the groundwork for those fundamental, requirements for, partnership success. So I applaud what you're doing to help kind of educate and enable the industry.
We try.
You do a great job. I think you guys do a great job of that. So keep up the good work on that, Anoop.
Well,
Thank you.
We promised that in this discussion, we talk about the 5 easy steps. Well, 5 steps anyway to achieve these partner-to-partner collaboration success. So why don't I just kind of frame that out a little bit and we can continue the conversations around those 5 steps.
Norma, we do have one question. Can I bring this in?
Yeah.
So the question from John is, what are the biggest differences in collaborative selling in the marketplace context versus strategic alliances 10 years ago? So I don't know if that's clear. John, you're welcome to chime in. And
yeah, I'm just wondering, if you talked about, if you said this, if somebody asked you, like, what are the top 3 or 4 principles or however many principles in co-selling, what would the answer have been 10 years ago before the rise of marketplaces? And now that we have marketplaces, how is it different today?
Well, I'll add a little context about difference today. I think partners today have, I think, with that collaborative environment, John, partners are able to more easily kind of profile themselves and can be more discoverable to one another, and that they can easily be, a partnership can more easily be activated, and around a real kind of, I guess, a business problem or a customer need, I would say, right? I mean, I think, traditional strategic alliances 10 years ago, it was, we had, lots of different partner types. We'd build relationships around, with GSIs and activate a channel and have, technology partners or MSPs, et cetera. But I think within that, collaborative, community that P2P enables, partners, I mean, it's not so much about partner types, but it's more about, what capabilities partners bring together that can be easily discoverable and activated in real time without more of a lengthy kind of vetting process of partnership.
I would suggest that that's key as well, is that don't think the collaborative selling motions are as highly structured as they used to be. I think SaaS has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of small, nimble, innovative, SaaS companies out there, and they don't want to spend 6 months in building a relationship before they hit the ground selling. So I think the speed of the business, the nimbleness of the newer players in particular, I think the collaborative selling model is a much more, as you described it earlier, Greg, it's a lot more dynamic and fluid and fast moving and a lot more customer centric.
Yes. And John, I was, in addition, we talked a little bit about Microsoft, Cisco. There's a lot of really other interesting companies that are activating that collaborative, selling motion. Like I was looking and saw some information about Shopify. They've got like a million businesses on their platforms now in terms of the revenue that they're generating, through their community. Hubspot is another one that has some really interesting metrics around. They've got like 1,000 integrations as of early this year. They've got about 135,000 customers now using their platform and integrations. And then I saw I know Drew Quinlan's doing some interesting things at like Ring Central as well around their, there's like 3x as frequency and partners in terms of the upsell rates that they're seeing when partners are involved. So there's a lot of cool metrics that are
lifetime customer value goes up the more.
Yeah, lifetime customer value increases. Yep. John, does that answer your question?
It does. I'm curious, part of this is, 10 years ago, if you asked somebody the same question, they probably would say, yes, the customer is always front and center. But, is it just that now there's just more tools, more technical tools and for getting even closer to the customer faster? Is it just,
yeah.
Is that, yeah.
I don't think it's so much the technical tools. I just think it's more focus on customer, and that customer solutions are more complex and require multiple, collaboration of multiple partners.
Yeah.
I think the tools are just barely getting a toehold.
They are. I think the tools are getting a toehold, right? And tools have been more kind of single-threaded traditionally, right? Which have made multi-partner initiatives challenging to scale.
And attribution is still really immature. How do you, if you've got in a deal, who do you give credit to?
Yep. And we can, let's keep the conversation going. This is really good.
So, Greg, I actually have a question. And so are business outcomes for the ecosystem P2P collaborations, in your mind, more successful than the traditional channel?
I would say yes. I was looking at Jay McBain, he does his channel predictions every year.
Right.
2022. And there was some interesting channel predictions that he talked about was the ecosystem orchestrator becomes the new trusted advisor. And marketplaces, I think he said marketplaces accelerate the decline in resale. Okay. And I think, Didi, to your question, looking at the way the traditional channel model in terms of the metrics and KPIs that they care about, around active pipeline value,
Mhm.
number of new partners enrolled, training completions, things like that, partner sat, deal registration, average deal size. And I was looking at a recent study by Tech Isle study, and they were talking about I think they said this idea of delivering like turnkey solutions, where you have a combination of hardware, software wrapped in advisory, implementation, and management delivered as a solution, which traditionally has allowed the customer, like that turn a key and they begin obtaining benefit from that technology. And that's been what's embedded kind of deeply in the channel model traditionally. And these kind of P2P ecosystems hasn't been a core focus for channel organizations previously. But the study and just from conversations I've had is that those collaborative environments will be increasingly critical. This is the success in providing that channel coverage for complex technologies. Okay. And I think that will be more of a distinguishing characteristic that channel firms will have. And so they will look to, I think the channel will look to at partner to partner alliances and programs where they're not actively developing those capabilities. If they don't activate them, they'll be vulnerable to gaps in their ability to meet those customer expectations, and would reduce, I think, their profitability and relationships with existing clients. And so I think channels and the channel community, those that are effective in the P2P environment are more likely to experience the higher growth than those that collaborate with in the traditional channel fashion. And
So Greg, I have a follow on because this is something that I've experienced. I work with a publication, and we put a podcast on for MSPs. And one of our questions for the most recent podcast, I remember it's a couple of months ago, was their thoughts on the ecosystem and partner to partner collaboration. And none of them heard of it. I mean, they just don't. And one of them is an enormous MSP, 700 employees. And so it leads me, we had a big discussion about that. And it leads me to wonder how the partners are being brought in to discuss this, because MSPs, they're managed service providers, but they are still a partner, and they could be involved as part of an ecosystem in many ways, but they're not part of the conversation.
Are they even realizing that they are part of an ecosystem? Because aren't they providing support and services for software applications that are running in the customer environment?
Well, yeah, they do. But they haven't been brought in by any of the companies that any kind of ISVs or hardware company or anybody. They just have not been part of that discussion. And what I mean by, they haven't been formally brought on board or anything like that. There hasn't even been a discussion. There hasn't even been a conversation with them. And they were a little bit surprised by the question. And so whenever I read, Jay McBain and other people who write about the ecosystems and partner to partner and collaborations in general, I find that many times partners might not be present in that. And if that's the case, then what should be done to start bringing them on board and getting them involved? And it's not just MSPs, VARs.
So I'm going to interrupt here because I started lining out the 5 steps for P2P integration, which is what we promised the people here. So
Yes.
We've covered about 3.5. This gives an opportunity to kind of complete the loop here. And I think the MSPs actually come into the play here where I don't think they really realize their role. But we talked about the initial of designing a solution around the customer needs, innovating, collaborating around the customer experience and business requirements, assembling the partners and co-innovating that solution, a value proposition. So that's step 2. We've talked that. 3, win the deal, collaborative selling, joint account planning, integrating your CRM information, trust, this key part of this. Delivering the solution. So once you've won the deal, collaboration among the parties, the partners in actually delivering it, installing it, configuring it, adding services to it, and then managing customer success. And this is where I think MSPs often play a big role, and maybe they just aren't recognizing that role, but this is ongoing customer delight. This is the managing the customer expectations so that there's renewal and expansion in the account. 5 steps. We've talked about 3.5.
Well, that ongoing nurturing of customer success is really important, right? How you continue to track success. Are we meeting the needs or not? Do we need to make adjustments or tweaks along the way? Companies measure those kinds of outcomes with customers pretty rigorously, I would say, to ensure that we're delivering, on the business outcomes that they've defined. So I think that just has to be part of the regular kind of ongoing, capability that an ecosystem would have.
And what I'm finding with many large orchestrators is that they're looking at the front end, the solution completion, the co-selling, the delivery. They don't really have partners that are specifically tasked to do that customer success piece. Some do, and I think it's an evolving trend, but I think it's very important, as you said, but I haven't seen a lot of deliberate, motions to say, okay, who sticks with the customer, ensures they're getting full value from our software, our solutions, and are consuming more and upselling and cross-selling, all of that.
Yeah, I think that, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Point, Norma, I'd just like to bring in a question that came to my mind based on what you just said. Greg, what positions or policies have, vendors or partners developed that would get in the way of collaborative success? And one of the things that Norma just mentioned is one way, but based on your real life experience, do you have any kind of things that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think Anoop hit on a couple of these things that get in the way. We get in, in our own way many times around collaborative success. And I think markets, the market's really interesting right now. I think global markets are slowing a little bit. And so, companies I think will continue to rely on partners and collaborative selling, to define and access new growth, sources of growth. And I think, especially with some, strategic partnership failure rates are still, in question sometimes, anywhere between 15 to 50%. So I think that comes back to the core capabilities that companies need to have around collaborative, partnering, including, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned a little bit this before around having the right, do we have the right culture, the right DNA in terms of our ability, to partner? Do we have the right, governance models in place, the right executive commitments? Do we have the right, partner, value proposition that's differentiated and unique? Is that part of our, the partner strategy has to align with the corporate strategy. So I remember at Cisco, we used to have this kind of vision, strategy, execution, VSE. Everything had to line up to our 3 to 5 year vision, kind of our 1 to 2 year strategy, and then our 1 year execution. So making sure that, those kinds of things are aligned to the corporate, care abouts and outcomes is really important. And then I think, making sure, I remember a lot of companies look at innovation, Gary, as, they look at build by partner. And so how do you look at where do you build it yourself? Where do you strategically acquire to fill in gaps? And then, what is the partnering component around that innovation, vision and capability? So I think those are a couple of things I would call out around where we kind of get in our own way, but need to be in place around policies and culture and kind of our posture in terms of us being and I think designing, I have the phrase called design to partner, that we need to design our, design partnering capability within the DNA of the company is really important. And then I think following the traditional steps to mutual profitability path are really important for companies to look at around, things like a shared strategic map, where you've got this, as I said, governance framework, the ability to develop solutions, go to market, field engagement capabilities, early customer wins, and then measure success, getting the sales teams aligned around shared results and accountability, and then fine tuning and learning, what's worked before, what are gaps, what do we need to do differently in the future. So having that kind of rigor, I think, is important for companies.
I think you mentioned something I think is a real trust builder, which is when you start having that partner economic question about how do we both make money?
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure that you're designing your partnership around, mutual value.
Yeah.
Is, what can I get from you?
Yep, exactly. It needs to be, we always talk about win-win. It's kind of overused term, but there needs to be an ROI and mutually profitable, or there's no reason to do it. And it's sometimes can come at the expense of going it alone, or, part of your
putting a customer at the center, which is another misstep.
Absolutely. Customer at the center is key.
The customer at the center is the pie growing act.
Yes.
So for everyone on the call, Norma put into the chat the 5 steps in infographic. You can click on that to get the summary of the 5 steps. Any other questions? Either raise your hand or put it in the chat. Oh.
Okay. Greg, do you have any parting thoughts for us?
No, I think these kinds of dialogues and bringing together, partnering experts and those that really care about continuing to develop and nurture, trusted partnerships and focusing around the customer needs, I think, is really important. And so I think let's just continue the dialogue and continue to collaborate and help each other, with the right capabilities and the right, tools that we need moving forward. So I think we have a lot of great, expertise and talent in the community. Let's try to leverage each other's strengths and capabilities to help one another.
Hey, Anoop has his hand up. Go ahead, Anoop.
I can never. I always try to chime in on something. Greg, I guess where the whole P2P thing becomes interesting and a bit more complex is when we are seeing a lot of this. I'm sure we have overlap of industries, right? So if you think about fintech or insurtech or health tech or whatever, all of a sudden the ecosystems that are, or the partnering community that comes together is a lot more diverse because they're from different industry sectors. Yeah. And in some cases, it's not necessarily about selling. It's about meeting the need of a patient, right? Or the health provider or something like that. Yeah. Now that changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it, within the whole P2P thing?
Yeah. And I think I've seen, like, Microsoft, when they traditionally built their P2P network, it was focused on Azure with their ISVs and resellers, but they've activated other P2P ecosystems within their firm around specific industries, as you say, Anoop. So, industrial IoT, or, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, et cetera. So these P2P networks can be activated around real unique business challenges or customer needs. And then the right partners can come together with the same principles around unique industry requirements or outcomes that need to be addressed. So I think you raise a good point on they can be really diverse and be activated quickly around an industry specific needs, I would say.
Yeah. And I guess the challenge, Greg, within that is the fact that where you have these different organizations that may not necessarily sit within technology,
Sure.
they sit within different industries, and the clock cycle in which they work is really radically different, isn't it?
Yes. There'll be a lot of learning to garner from that, John. I'm sorry, Anoop.
Yeah.
I was looking at John's mugshot there. Sorry, John. Yes. So I think there'll be a lot of learning and kind of recalibrating and kind of figuring things out as we move forward. So,
okay.
Yeah. Great question, Anoop. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I just wanted to add that we talk about trust a lot, and that's one of the reasons why I have to bring Salesforce and put a pitch in for Salesforce. Why they're successful is because of their trusted relationship with partners and customers. And I'll leave an acronym for you. T is for transparency. R is for relationship, building those strong relationships. U is for the understanding between these parties. S is shared success. And T is for testing assumptions. So utilizing all of those, I think, would help build that trust. So with that, anything else, Norman? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, not at all. I think we just need to wrap.
Gary, it was quite good
time here.
I was going to say, Gary, quite interesting to share that acronym in terms of what it means. So I think that'll be good if we can get it on email or something like that to us, because it's a good acronym. And I think, Gary, to your point, I've seen that people talk about Salesforce when they talk about trust, because trust is one of the number one values for Salesforce, is it not?
Yes, correct. From
what I see. Yep. And an interesting thing, I know, Greg, you mentioned, Peter, one of the things that Peter Simmons and I do, we actually major on the fact that a lot of companies should actually look, they say you can't measure trust. And I say, no, you can, right? They should look to measure trust, because as I've seen somewhere else, is lack of trust can be your biggest expense. Yeah. But actually, if you look at trust, it is your single biggest asset. And therefore you should be measuring that, actively measuring it. Yeah. And I don't see a lot of that happening. Yeah. Absolutely. But they should be doing it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Anoop, if it's because they're not sure how they can measure it.
And you're right, Didi, but there are now ways of measuring that, and there's different ways of measuring it. Yep. But I've used a simple formula, which I think people are aware of, right? It's from the Trusted Leaders, I think it is, or something like that. I've used that formula and I put some values around it. I worked it when I was at Nokia. I shared it with my senior leaders, and those leaders they were open mouthed when they saw that. They said, "Oh my God, didn't realize you could do that," right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's important, and I actively encourage people to actually do that. I think it's really important.
Very cool.
Well, thank you for everybody for your participation, for your attendance. Just one more minute. And we just want to thank you for attending. And we would like to send to you a Microsoft case study and statistics on P2P collaborations. And if you would like to get that information, please send us an email to p2pcollaboration1@gmail.com. And just as an FYI to everybody, the slide deck is posted up on the partner-to-partner collaboration LinkedIn page. So you will be able to see these slides there. And Gary, one more click. And we have 5 more of these coming up the 4th Tuesday of every month. like I said, through October. This will be posted as well as part of the slide deck. And so we've got the next one is June 23rd, same time, same place. So June 23rd, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry about that, Anoop. And the next one is design the solution. And yes, and Michael, the email is posted on the collaboration, on the P2P collaboration page on LinkedIn. It is in the slide deck, which is already there. So if you go there right now, Michael, you'll see it. And then there it is right there. So thank you, everybody. And please look for a LinkedIn invite for the next one, Design the Solution, on June 23rd. And we are so happy that you all have been able to attend and have a great, a noob, but have a great Memorial Day weekend if you're in the United States. That's coming up this weekend. So thanks, everybody. And we're so happy that you attended.